Minasan, konnichiwa. In this short video, I want to give you an overview explanation of the Japanese writing system so that by the end you have an understanding of the difference between kanji, hiragana, katakana, and romaji writing systems. So the first thing to know is that originally, Japanese language, just like all languages in the world, was a spoken language only. Much later was there a writing system for Nihongo. It was not until the 4th or 5th century AD that Japan adopted the Chinese writing system in order to write the Japanese language. At the time, China's civilization was much more advanced than Japan, and so Japanese scholars were going into China to learn all kinds of things, ideas about government, about religion. Buddhism came into Japan through China. Of course, it was originally, Buddhism was developed in India, all kinds of cultural things as well, like pottery making and music. And so many of these ideas came into Japan. And as they did so, China already had developed a writing system about over 3,000 years ago. Because they already had a fully developed written system and Japan did not, people decided to use the Chinese written system in order to write down Japanese as well. And so these Chinese characters are called kanji. Kanji literally means Chinese characters. Now, that was good, except by adopting the Chinese written system to write down Japanese, that created some challenges because in actuality, the Chinese spoken language and the Japanese spoken language are very, very different from each other. Like the grammar is completely different, and many of the pronunciations are very different, which makes kanji challenging for us in modern day Japan to learn as well. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. So, the first thing to know is, in fact, modern Japanese has 4 different writing systems. But interestingly enough, we use them in combination to write a single sentence in Japanese. If you look at any written sentence in Japanese, at least 2 of the writing systems are used together. So, you need to know the difference between what those 4 are. So, the first one are kanji, and kanji are Chinese characters. The second system is hiragana, and hiragana characters or hiragana letters were developed a few centuries after kanji were adopted into Japan. So, first of all, kanji, the Chinese characters, each character has a meaning. So, for example, this is a kanji character. It's a box with a stick in the middle. This kanji by itself, one character, is a whole word. It means middle. It also means inside. But then we can also combine kanji so that several kanji together are used to create additional words. This is middle, but we can use 1, 2, 3 kanji characters to make a new word, middle school. So these 3 together mean middle school. Now, hiragana letters are very different. They were originally developed out of kanji. And by the 9th century or so, they were quite often used by women because it was the men who had the opportunity to learn kanji, but women were not given that opportunity. So when the simpler hiragana letters were developed, in many cases, women learned those first. Hiragana are very different from kanji because they are phonetic. Phonetic means that each letter in hiragana stands for a sound, one sound. In fact, each one is one syllable, but they don't have any meaning. So just like in English, the ABCs have a sound but no meaning, hiragana is like that. The letter W or the letter R, it has no meaning, right, by itself, but it does have a sound. Hiragana is like that. And if you look at them, they have very much simpler curvy shapes compared to kanji. So hiragana have a sound, but there's no meaning for each one. And when you put them together, that's how you create the writing of words. You can write kanji as well as hiragana. There are a number of different fonts that make them look slightly different. Okay, so here are some kanji. Like this one is sun, and this one is gold. This one means small, and this one means summer and rain. Here are hiragana letters, hiragana characters. They're phonetic. They have a sound, but each one does not have a meaning. So kind of notice how they look. And here's an example sentence. So can you kind of look at this sentence and tell which ones are kanji characters and which ones are hiragana characters? I think for the most part you can guess. And here we are. The ones that are very complex are the kanji ones. But you can tell that some kanji are also quite simple. And then the green ones are hiragana letters. So what's the difference? When do you use kanji in a sentence? And when do you know to use hiragana in the same sentence? In a sentence that has a mixture of kanji and hiragana, please know that kanji are used for the main words. The nouns, person, place, or thing, are written in kanji. The verb stems, the adjective stems, are written in kanji. So here's a noun, library. Here's another noun, Friday. Here's an adjective, new. And then verbs, action words, to start, to read, to borrow. Then hiragana is used for word endings, like tense endings, for example, if you need to put something in past tense, or transition words and other bits and pieces of a sentence that connect these main words together so that they have meaning. Those things are written in hiragana. Also, words that would normally be written in kanji are written in hiragana for children because it's assumed that children don't know how to read all of the kanji yet. Okay, so we just talked about kanji and hiragana, but there are 4 writing systems. The third writing system is called katakana. Katakana, just like hiragana, they are also phonetic. Each letter stands for one sound or one syllable, but it has no meaning. So what's the difference between katakana and hiragana? Why do we have both? Katakana is used only to write words that are borrowed from other languages. So Japanese actually uses a lot of words borrowed from English, but also from a bunch of different languages in the world. So a word like computer or backpack, pizza, these words are written in katakana. Also, place names and people's names that are originally from foreign languages or foreign cultures are also written in katakana. And also sound effects, especially like in comic books where there's a lot of sound effects. Those are written in katakana. Katakana, when you look at them, they're simple shapes, but they're blocky. They have more straight lines and sharp corners than hiragana. But the nice thing about katakana, because they're used to write a lot of English words, it's satisfying because you can recognize the word. So here we have the word Canada, America, and Mexico. You'll probably recognize those as 3 countries: Canada, America, Mexico. And here you can see the difference between different fonts on the computer. The fourth and last writing system of Japanese is called Romaji, or the Romanized alphabet. This is when we use ABCs to write Japanese words and phrases. And we use Romaji to write Japanese for people who don't know how to read kanji, hiragana, or katakana. Romaji is not really English. For example, this is my last name, Nakamura. Normally, I would write it in kanji. If I'm writing it for Japanese children who might not know the kanji, I would write it in hiragana. But if I write it in ABCs, that's romaji. Don't get romaji confused with English. Romaji, here I've written konnichiwa, hello, in Japanese. Notice Konnichiwa is a Japanese word. When we use ABCs to write Japanese, that's what we mean by romaji. HELLO is the English, but the KONNI, that's the Romaji. Okay, so here's kanji, hiragana, and katakana. Kanji, each one has a meaning. Hiragana and katakana, each one does not have a meaning, but each one has a sound. Okay, now, hiragana were developed from kanji. They are actually super simplified versions of whole kanji. So here's an example. Here's a kanji, but when they're written with a calligraphy brush in cursive, they start getting, the lines get connected together. And eventually this whole kanji came to be simplified into this hiragana. The katakana are also created from kanji, but they were created out of taking a small part of a more complex kanji. And they are simple shapes, but they're more blocky, right? Straighter lines and sharper corners. So here's a whole kanji, but if you take only the left side, then we have this katakana. Whereas this hiragana here is the whole kanji. This katakana is only part of the kanji. So all katakana were developed out of bits and pieces of kanji. All the hiragana were created out of simplified versions of whole kanji. And by the way, every hiragana has an equivalent katakana. So this is a in hiragana, a in katakana. Ku in hiragana, ku in katakana. Se in hiragana, and se in katakana. So when you look at this sentence, you can see that it's a mixture of katakana, hiragana, kanji, and even ABCs. And we already talked about how kanji is used for main words, nouns, verbs, and adjective stems. Hiragana is used for word endings such as tense endings, transition words, and other connectors that connect all the words together. Katakana, again, is used for words borrowed from other languages. So here is the katakana word America and the name John. ABCs can also be used in the same sentence, and we might choose to use ABCs when we want to clarify a spelling, for example, or write the official name of an organization or a book title or something that would be much more accurate than to write it in katakana. So this sentence says, アメリカ人の友達の名前はジョンですが、ジョンでなくジョンです。This sentence just happens to say, my American friend, his name is John, but instead of John, it is Jon. So in my next video, I'd like to go ahead and introduce you to kanji characters a handful at a time so that by the end of that video, you're already recognizing and reading 20 kanji.